I'm talking to Ian Burns, who has a new single out called California, which is from his forthcoming fourth album that unintentionally went together, forthcoming and fourth. And we'll talk about albums and California and other things. Ian, hello.
Hello, how are you going?
I'm very well, thank you. I've been listening to your music and having a great time doing so. And I will start by asking you about that new single, California. Please tell me, what is so appealing about California?
California, I think, is really a metaphor for, in the music industry, particularly, music across the board. But if we're talking country music in our beautiful land here, there's that real draw to want to get to America. Maybe not so much California, but certainly around Texas or Tennessee. There's that real draw, almost like if you really make it, if you're going to hit the big time, you've kind of got to make it there, along the lines of so many artists that have gone there and had success. And so to me, California was really a metaphor about the desire of trying to make it to the top, but what are you willing to risk or put on the line, relationships, et cetera, to achieve that goal.
And also I was reading that you said this song is about the tension between wanting to chase those dreams and take care of responsible commitments of life. Given that you have made 4 albums now, you've been a musician for a while, do you think it's hard to stay committed to those particular dreams?
Yeah, I think certainly with myself, I reassess my dreams a lot. Things get, you achieve little goals. I am actually one of those people that set achievable smaller goals and chase those. And so I like to tick. Actually, I'm a list maker. I drive people nuts, particularly my poor wife. I'm a real list maker, and I love the power of crossing things off a list as they're achieved. And so I like to set achievable goals as well as larger goals. And so that way I've found it keeps me fresh with my desires and what I want to achieve and how I want to achieve them.
Was that a method you came across because early on you sort of set big goals and then thought, actually, I need to go about this a different way? Or was it just in your nature to be that list maker and to be more pragmatic, I guess, about how you go about doing something?
Bit of both. Bit of both. I guess even with I've got 2, obviously I've got my beautiful family in my life, and they're massively important to me. Work-wise, I'm lucky enough to have 2 things I'm very passionate about, and one is obviously my music, and the other is work. I work with horses. And so I really enjoy doing both of those, and they work really well together. And I guess from even having run my business for well over 30 years now, running a business, as you know, is all about, achieving little goals and trying to get up these, challenges, defeat these challenges that come in your way of running a business. And music's very similar. You're going to have these great surprises that are just fantastic and unexpected and beautiful, and you're going to meet fantastic people, and I've been extremely lucky to meet the people I've met so far. But you're also going to have your challenges. You're going to have those times where you question it, and that's kind of good for you as well, because it does make you reassess things, and it reminds you that it's not all this easy thing that you're going to hit dizzy heights without any challenges. It's crazy to think that. And so these challenges come along. So yeah, it was born off the back of all those things.
I was going to ask you about horses, because I saw some photos on your Instagram of you working with horses. But as you're talking about that side of your work, I'm wondering what working with horses might have taught you about being a musician, about creative practice, because there are certain ways you have to know how to work with a horse, which I would imagine could be quite instructive.
Yeah. It's actually very similar. And you're right, that's a great question, because You're really right. You've got to try and read a situation with a horse. You can't charge at them. And your smallest mannerisms will be picked up by a horse. So, if you puff your chest out and you march at a horse, unless it's the doughiest thing in the world, it could be Mr. Ed may not run away, but most other horses would kind of go, oh, hang on, this fellow is approaching me in a threatening nature. And a horse is a fight or flight animal, and often given the opportunity, it'll be flight. And so you can't be a bull at a gate with a horse. You have to be subtle. And I guess with music, it's similar in that way as well. I think you have to take your time and do it right, put the right foundations in, build genuine relationships with people. And as I mentioned before, I've been really lucky enough to do that. There's some really terrific people in the Australian country music scene, both, on stage and behind stage. There's some fantastic people. I'm lucky enough to have met many. And so it's all about building those relationships and make them genuine relationships. It's got to be real, because I think the other thing we've got in Australian country music is you've got to be real. You have to be real, because people will spot a phony from a long way away.
But the same thing, I guess, with a horse, you have to bring your authentic self, because horses are very sensitive. I remember someone saying to me years ago, remember when you're sitting on a horse, you're sitting on its spine, and that's hugely sensitive, and therefore it can pick up all sorts of subtle things when you're changing your seat and throughout riding that horse. And so I imagine, that too is useful information to have as an artist.
Very much so. Yeah, without a doubt. Horses are incredible animals. I guess you can use horses as an example to a lot of things, because horses can just be a tool. If you just use them as a tool or a way to, and I am not trying to categorize anybody here, but if we're talking professional racing industry, for instance, I've got some fantastic trainers I work for that love their horses, but in some circumstances, the horses are a tool that are used and raced, and there's certainly in other sports as well, and the horse is respected and treated well. I'm definitely not saying that, but if you want to go completely the other way, you can look at how horses are being used now to help people with PTSD, and I've got beautiful friends that are using horses to work with ladies that have been in situations of domestic violence, and their self-esteem is in tatters, and yet working with horses in this environment, the horse is just giving them back this strength and just empowering them to realize that they can be loved, and so how you take a horse, whether it's just on face value and it's a horse, you just ride it, now just put it back in the box, or you can have a relationship with a horse. Similar I guess in the music industry in that way as well.
Yeah, and similar to music itself, because you can have a song that you can just take on face value and listen to in the background. That's great. Or you can choose to have a relationship with that song and listen to it more deeply. And so I can see the way you talk about horses, what they mean to you. I'm wondering what music has meant to you, and at what age did you start to have a relationship with music?
Yeah, always. I'm an absolute late starter at making music. But I've always had a relationship with music. My mum and dad always listened to music, and when we moved to this country when I was 4, we came over from England. We were literally 10-pound poms, and so we came over when I was 4, and my family just fell in love with Australia, and Dad wanted to see as much of it as he could. So he literally used to load up the Kingswood with us and tents and just drive, and it was music all the way. And so and we were literally that family that would sing along as a family. And it sounds a million years ago now, doesn't it? You know, compared to how things happen now. But certainly back in those days, I've got these incredible memories of these great long drives and going to these country towns, but listening to music all the way. And then through my teens and into my 20s, I just loved music, but I never picked up a guitar to play it until I was 40 years of age.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what prompted that?
I just always had that desire, but too many other things got in the way. And then one day, I don't know. I mean, you know, if you want to we can get all hippie and say the universe just thrust this guitar in my hand one day, and it was just fantastic. It was it was almost like a chunk of me was missing that I didn't know was missing. And then I picked up a guitar and started playing, and then that ticked a lot of boxes in me. But I was learning, you know, covers and things like that. And that was great. And it was fun. And very quickly I was jumping up with cover bands and doing stuff like that. But I still wasn't getting fulfilled. And I didn't know what was missing until one day I wrote a song. And I just got this idea, you know, and you'll talk to a lot of songwriters that would say it just pops in out of the universe somewhere. We don't know where these ideas come from. And I was on my way to a guitar lesson that night when I got the song idea and arrived there and just said, mate, I think I might have an idea for a song, and sang it to him. And of course, the difference with me compared to this genius guitarist was he went, just sing that again. And then he played the whole thing back to me. Oh, wow. And I was just blown away that he was able to pick up. And it stimulated so many things in me that I've never stopped writing and playing since.
This often happens to me. I have something in my head, and then while you're talking, I start thinking of other things that goes completely out of my head. I've just remembered what it was, and it was, do you have that first guitar still? Or have you traded it in for something else?
No, hopefully Susie can't hear this. I'm a guitar collector.
Do you keep them under the bed? Is that why she doesn't know?
A lot. They're everywhere.
All right.
Amscray on the guitar, right?
Well, yes, you still have just that one guitar. It's the same guitar.
Yeah, just the one. Just the one. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, no.
So did you find, given that you were singing, you know, in childhood on these trips, and you started guitar at 40, had you been singing all that time, like singing along to the radio, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and I was singing in church. So I'd sung. People would say they couldn't stop me. I was singing, singing all the time. I love great music, and that's quite wide for me. I love country music, of course, but you know, having grown up, I was kind of in my teens and then into my early 20s in the 80s, and that music scene in Australia, I feel very privileged to have been around at that time, because I would, you know, my friends and I would literally go and watch music four nights a week. We lived together in a share house, and we just saw so many gigs, and that just, without even realizing it, was just fueling this fire that would come along later of such passion for the music. And you know, I wonder, you know, these guys were playing and they're brilliant, but those, you know, how those songs back in your past can touch your soul, and so many of them now, you know, you put on one of those songs and I can remember exactly where I was, and so, you know, I just love that about music. It can just put you in a time and a place instantly.
Was there a particular band or bands you always went to see, like over and over again?
Yeah. I mean, overseas bands I always massively love were the Eagles and Creedence and John Fogerty, you know, out of Creedence and things like that. And certainly Queen, and because a lot of British music I loved as well. But as far as here, well, that scene at that time was just pub bands were, you know, In Excess, Mondo Rock, Midnight Oil, Australian Crawl, you know, Cold Chisel were just doing the pub scene. And so, you know, you could literally go and, you know, Ice House, you know, I could just list this list so long. And one of my favorites that I saw so many times was Mondo Rock. I just love Mondo Rock, and yeah, brilliant, massive effect on me. I love their writing. Often Ross Wilson was doing a lot of the writing, but the other guys wrote as well. And I love what they wrote. And Don Walker for Chisel, amazing songwriter. So many Australian great musicians.
Well, that was a great time to be going to bands in pubs. And of course, once you started performing, it wasn't just you performing solo, because from what I understand, you do perform solo, you perform in a duo, and you also have a band sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have a preference out of those.
Yeah, they're all really different. I've been playing solo a lot lately, and that's twofold, because it's much easier for a pub to get a solo act in, and so, you know, I've been playing solo a lot lately, and playing more of a style where I'm talking a little bit about the songs, almost doing a singer-songwriter, songwriter in the round, but there's only one person in that round. And so I've really been enjoying that. And that was born off the back of playing these gigs and talking a little bit about the songs, and then lovely people coming up afterwards and you know, telling me that, oh, that story you told about that song really, you know, touched something in me, a memory and a situation and things like that. And I realized that they were enjoying those little stories that I was talking about, why I wrote the songs and things like that. And then playing in a duo, well, that's fun, because often if I'm playing in a duo, it adds so much color. So normally it would be a friend, Bernie or Andy or Rod Moppy, or, well, brilliant guitarists, fun guys. So it adds that side of it where, you know, we'll have a bit of banter on the stage and we'll have some fun, but you know, you've got an extremely talented player sitting right next to you playing music. And then the band, well, that's totally different again, because what we'll be doing then is there'll be 4 or 5 of us on stage, all bouncing off each other, having a great time. And the difference, obviously, between solo compared to a band would be solo, it's mostly singer-songwriter stuff. Band, well, we'll be cranking out the tunes and trying to get people up for a dance.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have fun regardless of the circumstance. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Now, as I mentioned at the top, California is a single from your forthcoming album, which has the same name. Is this album one of those COVID semi-casualties in that you recorded it a while ago and you had to hang on to it?
Little bit. Look, I'll show you something. There it is.
Oh, it's real.
It's real. How's the light?
No, I can see it. Yes.
It's got a tangible, real product.
It's got a lovely tropical cover.
It does. Yes and no. So the album, I've been really lucky. California is the 5th single off the album. So I've been extremely lucky with that. And what we started with was a song called Think Again, followed by a song called Friday Night. And Think Again, I was really lucky because it did really well. A mate of mine, Duncan Toombs, did the video for that. And it was funny because Think Again was all about the challenges in life. And I wrote that really off the back of the worst drought in the East Coast history, followed by these terrible bushfires. And yet, by the time we actually recorded them and put it out, COVID had started. So it looked like it was all, but it was actually about the bushfires. Think Again was also, Think Again was released with Friday Night, following shortly after, about 8 weeks later. But then, COVID had hit. And so there was a delay on finishing the album. And what we were lucky enough to do, I'm based in New South Wales. And so what we were lucky enough to do was, in one of the times when we could actually get back in the studio during COVID, we got back in and finished the rest of the album. It benefited me, and I don't want to understate how difficult COVID has been for so many people. But in this particular situation, it helped me because I was able to finish writing the album. And also when we went in the studio, we had time to really take time on the album. There was no gigs at that point. And so we were able to really take all the time it needed to put all the effort into the last of the songs.
And having done 4 albums, I mean, that's a lot of songs written, a lot of time in the studio, working with other musicians, learning about yourself as a singer, as a guitarist, as a songwriter. What do you think is different about you now from 4th album compared with the 1st album? What have you learnt that you cherish, I guess?
Yeah, another great question. Yeah, I think I've changed a lot. I think I'm more confident with who I am now in music. I have a better appreciation for what I want in my songs now. So when I'm writing them, I will basically hear the song finished as I'm writing them. Sometimes that's really hard to get across to these brilliant musicians that I'm recording with, and also was Doug Bruce initially, a very good friend of mine from Victoria for the first 2 albums, and then a fellow called Simon Johnson at Hillbilly Hut for the last 2 albums. And I have probably worked out a better way to communicate how I'm hearing the song. And so I'm able to get that across better, I think, and then taking the time that a song needs. I really enjoy doing that now. Let it sounds silly to say let it breathe, but give it a chance to breathe rather than kind of run along and finish it because it looks like it's ready to go. Actually give it a chance to sit. It's like a red wine. Just sip it, let it sit a bit longer. And yeah, often you'll be much more confident with how you want the song to go by the time the album's finished.
And so you just described when you're writing a song that you hear how you want the finished song to sound. Does that mean that when you're writing a song, you tend to let an idea marinate in your brain, for lack of a better term, and then write that song in a rush? Or do you tend to tinker a bit after you've written initially?
Another very good question. A bit of both, I think. Some come quicker and some are slower. Often when I get an idea, it'll be some melody and some lyrics to build the song from. But as I'll often say to my poor wife, that's the easy bit. The hard bit is actually building the song then. And that can be harder, depending on the song. So sometimes I'll get 1.5, 2 minutes of an idea straight away. Well, that's not going to be so hard to finish that. Well, it can be, but it gives you a good head start. Let's put it that way. And then you've got to work out, some of these songs. I've been lucky enough to co-write with some fantastic people, Mary Harrison and David Carter from Victoria there, and a lovely fellow called Lachlan Bryan from Victoria as well. And so it's also when you've got an idea, but you think, no, I think this is a situation where I would love to get someone else involved, get someone else's point of view on this. And the Lachlan song is a song called Misty Mountains. It's on the new album. Right. And it was beautiful working with Lachlan because he's such a talented guy, such a lovely man. And he was able to take that song in areas where I probably wouldn't have gone. And so that's fantastic in that environment as well.
Yeah. I've had you talking for a while. So my last question will be to ask you if you actually have a release date for California.
Yes. Digitally, it's going to be out on the 4th of August.
Right.
So that's very exciting and coming really quickly. We'll be doing some shows to support that album release as well. But if any lovely person out there would like a hard copy, I have them. I have them available from any time from now. And so they can find me on ianburns.anything, just about. Ian Burns Music will basically find me anywhere. And I'd love to get a CD to them if they'd like a CD.
Well, Ian, it's been so interesting to talk to you and to hear about both sides of your work. And congratulations in advance on the album release. And I hope the tour dates go very well. People can no doubt find them on your website and social media when they're posted.
Thank you so much for having me on. I hope everyone out there has a wonderful day, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ian.